Okay, so for this part of the video, we're going to start adding and extruding the information that we require. So the goal is to remove the elements that are not required, join the elements that are required together, and then separate items into different portions. Now, I've noticed some of you, it is quite hard to work in this environment. So the theme sometimes in Blender is quite hard to work with. So if you would like to start playing around with the colors of how things are represented, if you go to the top icon over here, and we're going to how these viewports work. So each one of these has a preset where you can set things to work in a different way. You'll see that there's a wireframe color. So if we change it to object or random, object and random work quite well. So I always try and switch mine to object. I'll do likewise if I select the shaded option as well, because sometimes I'm going to say object color as well. So if we say wireframe, I'm going to keep it the same. So all that this means is, if you select an object, and you, with the object selected, mesh or wireframe, if you go to the object itself, and then you go to this object properties, so if you open this up, you'll go to viewport display, you'll see that there's an object color here that we can go and adjust. If you change this, you'll notice that the color will change. Okay, just remember, try and keep it as default, because I've just found that you want to set this as neutral as possible. Okay, so just be careful not to make things, sorry, don't do that, RGB, just try and make things as neutral as possible. Okay, so alpha, just try and keep these things as close to white as possible. It just makes it easier to, when you are working, it just makes it easier to work. Okay, you can save these colors, so you can pick, or you can copy and paste these colors, doesn't matter. So this is, so see, everything is set as, that's how you set everything back to default. So if you have set things by accident, you can go and set everything back. Okay, so you can also use the backspace key sometimes. Okay, so set everything back to default. Okay, it just helps you while you're working. When you go back into edit mode, it will switch them back into this color, so that's fine, because this is just how you need to see it. Okay, but in essence, it's easier to see the wireframe information for the time being. Okay, so now that we've got our collection set up, so if we need to bring information back and forth, okay, and that's probably where this random color might be more useful, because it'll randomize things so you can see them a bit better, but that's totally up to you. Okay, so let's switch off our micro partner for now. Okay, now that we've got our plan information set up and we've got our section information set up. Okay, so with my section information, I might move this down 100 mil. So lock it on the Z axis. So if you use Control, you can snap it. You can see 100 mil minus. I'm just going to say minus 100. That might be 150, so I'm going to go back one and go 50. Too much. I go back, go back, go back, so 150. Okay, so my floor slab could have been 150 thick, and you can see that was kind of correct. My walls were slightly thinner. Okay. You could have also just set the origin to this point over here. So maybe let me do that quickly, because I think this is a great example to show you how the origin does work. So I'm going to say select cursor, and I'm going to pick that point over there. Now you'll see in view, you might have to reset in view, just reset this information. Select this object, and I'm going to say set origin to 3D. So origin to 3D cursor. All this allows you to do now, it allows you to set that to 0. So you know that that's perfectly down, and everything else is now working. Now this origin, it just allows you to move information away from the origin. So if you set all of this to 0 or use the backspace key, we can set all of this back to 0. So that's very, very important to understand. I can move it on the y-axis positively. So everything actually revolves around this origin. If you want to reset the 3D cursor back to the origin as well, you can simply go and reset the location information over here, and you see it resets itself back to the origin. Okay, so this is quite a handy tool. If we go to our side view, you'll notice that this information should be totally flat now. Okay, so that's very important to understand. So how do we go about modeling? So I'm going to model I'm going to start with creating my walls. I'll create my falls and my ceiling separately, and then I'm going to split up my wall information into two categories, external and interior walls. And this will come down to how you want to showcase your model. So ultimately, you need to decide how you want to showcase this, so you can break this up into more parts, or we can use some other workflows, and that's what I'm going to delve into in a minute when we start cutting this up. So I just want to create a shell and then kind of show you how you're going to cut this information up a bit. Okay, but it's pretty straightforward, so we're going to press tab to enter edit mode. Now while we're in edit mode, you can isolate just this information. Okay, I know a lot of the shortcuts, so I don't spend a lot of time, but you can jump between, it's called local view. If you jump to local view, it will isolate just the objects that you're editing. Okay, if you look on your numpad and you see my shortcut keys, you can switch that on and off. So that's quite a handy command to understand, to jump into local mode. So you can see numpad, so alt numpad undoes it, but if you just click it twice, okay. So this is very handy to understand, especially if you've got a lot of objects in your scene active. You can see this it's quite difficult to work, but I can very quickly jump into this mode and get out of it again. Okay, so that's the one nice little feature that I do enjoy. So just switch off your micropond for now. I'm going to leave this information on and I need to extrude this up. Okay, before we start extruding, we need to convert these lines into a closed face. So if we go and hover again, it doesn't matter, we can use vertex or edge selection, it doesn't really matter. If you hover on something, you press L for linked. What this will allow me to do, if I right click, it will allow me to fill this information with a new face. So it says new face from edges. So you can see it gives you all of these different options, but if you click F on your keyboard, it'll allow me to start filling in these faces. So ideally you want to fill this information first and then extrude it. So again, hover on the edge again, L, right click, again, fill new faces, but I know the short command, so L again, fill, L again, fill. Okay, L again, fill. Good, so I've actually got all my walls in place, so that's great. So it's done a good job to get all my walls in place. I've got that active, so let me just switch this off, just make sure you don't move origin. Now with everything selected, you can go to face mode and select all the faces, or you just press A on your keyboard and you can use the extrude command. Okay, so I'm going to switch off this for now. I'm just going to leave on vertices. I just want my vertices on for now, and I'm going to use the snapping mode again. Every command in Revit, if you hover over something, it will have a shortcut. So Shift Tab will switch it on and off. So Shift Tab will then Alt your snap. So that's quite handy to know as well. So while you've got everything active, you can right click. So you can see you can actually go and use a lot of these commands if you right click. So this is, you see it's always relating face, it tells you, and extrude faces. So I could just do this and snap there. You can see 2400 and it's picked up everything. You can also go and specify more information in here as well. Okay, individual faces, totally up to you. But you can see very quickly it's enabled me to quickly extrude this information. Just understand that I'm in X-ray mode. You have to use X-ray mode from time to time to look into objects to kind of see what's going on with the geometry. And with this version of Blender, there's another feature that I'd like to show you as well. This is very common in most software. Now, if your face orientation, so this is very important, most software has this feature enabled. You just don't see it, and it's very limited to how you can control it. SketchUp has the same feature. It's just a bit more difficult to understand, but this is very crucial to understand if you have objects. So if I press tab and I select one of these faces and I remove the face very quickly. So if I remove this face, faces only face, you'll see inside there's a red, the face is red. So what Blender is trying to convey is that that's the back side of the face and this is the outside of the face. So let me switch on the normals as well, then it makes a bit more sense. Here, so normals, I want to switch these on and I want to use pixels. So you see these little blue outlines, these arrows. We delved in this a little bit, but you need to make sure that all the faces are orientated outside. Very quickly you can select all your faces in the project. You can fix this if they're not all orientated the same. You can click on mesh and you can go to normals and you can make sure that you recalculate that they're all facing outside. You'll see sometimes when you're modeling this little gremlin will raise its head from time to time. I prefer to use, especially in Blender 4.5, I like to use this function where you can see, it depends how you want to do this. You can either, out of edit mode, you can say face orientation, so you can do that. So the important thing to understand about face orientation is that what most of the software is trying to do, it ignores the back face. So it means that anything that's a back face, there's no data. So that's all it's trying to do, because you want to save resources, so Blender does that by ignoring the black face, okay, the back face of an object. Okay, so you'll see that's why it's red. Okay, if you do have holes in your file, it's very easy to fix. We can go to edge mode, you can select all of those, right click, and again you can use the fill command. Okay, fill with new face. Okay, very easy to fix. Go all, select all vertices, so I jump to vertex mode. Okay, so vertex mode, I'm going to go merge by distance, just to make sure I don't have any additional pixels. Again, I'd just like to remind you that you can click at the bottom here. So if you click in the open space, just make sure that you have your scene statistics available. So it allows you to show you how many vertices that you have at once. Okay, so now you'll see that we've got some broken edges, we've got some additional information that we need to clean out. Luckily in Blender this is quite easy to do. Go to edge mode, press all, select all the edges, and then simply click delete on your keyboard, delete. Then you're going to say limited dissolve. So what this will do, it'll try its best to try and clean up the mesh, and go to remember in view, we're going to go to local view as well. So what we're trying to do is try and clean up the mesh as clean as we can. Okay, so I might want to, so in this model I might want to have two types of walls. So this one I'm going to rename. I'm going to rename this to external walls. So you just double click on that, and now we can go EX. I'm using abbreviations, walls, or you can just say, sometimes it's better to do it in this direction, walls EX, external. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this. So in this I'm going to say copy, so select this, Control C, paste it back because we're creating a duplicate. I'm going to call these walls IN. Okay, so now we're going to have internal walls and external walls. So my internal walls, I'm going to use the isolate command, and I can start getting rid of the exterior walls. Okay, so in the beginning this might be quite difficult to do, but actually switch on your X-ray mode, go to top view, and you'll see that this is actually very intuitive. I'm going to delete these vertices, delete vertices, delete vertices. I'm not too worried about the top and closed faces. We'll clean those up now. So I don't need those walls, delete those vertices. I don't need that, delete vertex, and delete vertex. Okay, now all that's happened is we need to go and close these faces. So fill, and you can see very quickly this is very easy to do. Fill. Okay, now fill those up. You can close these edges, that's totally up to you, but maybe we need to close them for the render. We just need to close the bottom. Okay, now be careful not to select everything at once. You want to be, I want to fill that, and I want to fill that. Okay, now this is where this icon will help you a lot. So if you switch on your face orientation, you'll start seeing your face orientation when things are not closed. So it's telling you those objects are not closed currently. So do not do that because you cycle through. Just be careful selecting your keypad sometimes. That is quite annoying. If you use the numbers on it will switch on and off your collections. I've noticed that is very annoying sometimes. So select those edges, just make sure it's just those edges. Alternatively, you can tab on one node and hold Alt at the same time. You'll see it will select a loop of open edges. So I can go fill again, very easy, go Alt again, sorry, don't click Windows, Alt again, fill. So you can see very quickly I can go and close these, very easy. Okay, So that's the one method. So if I go to this one now, I'll bring everything back and I'll go with that object selected. I'm now going to get rid of my internal walls. Okay, so there are other ways to do this. There is another way that I'd like to show you, which is also quite intuitive. If I use the node tool, so switch on your vertices, so edit mode. With your vertices selected, you can use the move tool to do this as well. And you need to enable this option here, which will auto merge vertices when they get to a certain distance. I can simply select all of those, move in this direction and snap to that vertex. This is another way that I can quickly go and fix up. And again, or if I delete and I dissolve, limit to dissolve, you can see this is very intuitive the way this works. Okay, so basically I could say, well, let's move that to there, let's move that from there to there. Be careful moving it like that, sometimes it'll move in a Z axis, but I'm happy with that, and I can just simply delete those as well. Okay, so there are a lot of ways in Blender to go and tweak your model. Okay, so I can move this again, and again I can use base points, so snap this vertex and snap it to there. Again, very easy. All, delete, limit to dissolve. Okay, so if you do get little objects that don't want to close, it's very easy to resolve. Okay, so now in a nutshell, switch off X-ray mode. Now we're going to have internal walls and external walls. Okay, I'm going to switch off that for now. So in essence, I'm done with this section. If you don't need it anymore, you can now move it to context maybe, because maybe you can drag and drop them into different. What I want to do with my shell is I want to have internal walls, external walls, because maybe for my render I would like to switch off and just show the internal walls, or while I'm working I just want to work on the internal walls and not the external walls. Okay, this workflow, this will depend on how you want to showcase your project as well. So take your time, try and work out which is the best workflow for you. For now, totally up to you. Okay, totally up to you. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to start considering how I'm going to open up the walls, open up the doors, where the doors are located. So let's start with the exterior side of the project. So let's just leave the exterior walls active, press tab, go to edit mode. So with the exterior walls, we're going to have some windows over here, we're going to have a door in this section over here. Alright, so very straightforward. We're going to go to face selection mode. Now with face selection mode active, and we go to wireframe or X-ray mode, I'm going to select this face. I hold down shift and select this face, right click. What this allows me to do, it allows me to bridge these faces. I know this is kind of counterintuitive at this point, but bear with me. I'm going to select these two, I'm going to bridge these faces as well. Okay, so I'm going to bridge these faces very quickly. Bridge faces. Okay, I'm going to bridge faces. Bridge faces. Okay, now what this allows me to do, if I select just these edges with edge selection mode, so let's go to edge selection mode. If I select just these, careful to have the move command active all the time. That is a bit frustrating, so just make sure. I'm going to subdivide these. Subdivide. I'm going to subdivide these 2 times. Okay, so there's my first step. I'm going to grab just those, grab those again, right click, subdivide twice. It'll try and subdivide it proportionally, so that's quite important to understand. Again, subdivide twice, okay, and then subdivide twice. Okay, good. So what this allows us to do now, it allows us to start kind of planning where our windows are going to go. So if I go to face mode again and I select just these faces, just those 2, remember, you can select your other objects, just don't select those ones in the distance, be careful. Make sure that those objects selected, right click. I'm going to again use this bridge faces. So what this will do, it will actually start cutting out those openings for me that I need and fix the geometry around. Okay, so that's very important. Again, bridge faces, and you can see using the right click command is actually very quick. Okay, so if you don't know the commands for now, use the right click option it does speed things up. Okay, so that's worked really well. I'm going to quickly bridge these faces. Good. Again, right click, bridge faces. Now, we need to start creating openings for our doors as well. So the first thing I'm going to do, go to my door, select this face underneath, and I'm going to use the extrude by manifold option so that when I extrude this up, now while you've got a command active, you can very quickly go and change this. Remember, I'm going in the negative direction, so this is something that you have to understand as well. But you can see to go and punch holes and remove data from a shell is actually quite quick and intuitive. Okay, so the next thing I need to do, if I go back to vertex mode, I can now go and move all of this information up. On vertex mode, I can go and move all of these up to match this point over here, because I want to maintain my head heights for my windows and my doors throughout the project. Okay, so that was quite quick. Very easy to do. I'll go to tab mode now, edit out of edit mode, and I bring back my internal walls. You can see very quickly I've got a project now starting to come together. Okay, so I've created my external walls. I'll need to focus on these very quickly. So again, I need to maybe start adding some additional information here as well. So tab, let's get my doors to the same height. So maybe I want this other information back so that I can use that height to get my doors the same height. So again, I'm going to go to face mode. So I'm going to go bridge edge layer, so bridge faces, and again, now this one might be a little more tricky. Let's just see. I don't think this will work, because I'll try, yeah. So, but that's handy to know. So this door, we're going to need another technique. So we're going to grab these edges. So two. So we're going to grab these edges, and we're going to subdivide them. Okay. We're going to have this vertex that we'll need to move up. So we need to move that up to snap to my door height. So the whole time while we're working, you can see how this works. It's very intuitive. Now, in addition to that, we've got a global origin, which is the world origin of Blender, and we've got the local origin, and that local origin is what we set here by setting the base point for this mesh. Or it's so local, you can go and edit this point. Very easy, so to 100. So there are a lot of ways to go and edit and work accurately in Blender. You can also enable these edges, so if you measure something, you can see there's a dimension the whole time. Okay, so that's handy. So when you're selecting objects, it'll tell you how high, how long. So you can see very easily, you can jump between these different tools to help you work accurately. So what we need to do now is extrude by manifold. Now, we also need to enable split faces and merge as well. So it means when we do extrude this, that it tries to incorporate it into this part of the wall. Okay, so there's many ways to do this actually. There's a lot of ways to do this. But in essence, I can go to extrude manifold now, go to face mode, grab this and extrude this information. So grab this point, I'm going to extrude it to here. Okay, so what this will try and do, now we can get rid of this extra face, delete faces, only face, because it's done its job. If we go to vertices, you'll see that it's tried to join it to this face. Okay, so that's quite handy to understand. Sometimes it won't extrude the face here, but it has by using this command. I try and control this on and off sometimes because it can get a bit messy, I have realized. Okay, but all we need to do now is extrude by manifold. It's still active, and I can snap it to this vertex over here. Again, you can also add in a value. Okay, so very easily, we've added our internal walls and external walls and make sure that everything is closed. So in edit mode again, we can also see the direction of the normals if we need to. The normals have become a lot more important when we start adding materials to this file, because that's when it starts to matter more. Okay, all right, so I've got a start to my project. Now I need to add some additional information. So I'm going to make sure shell selected, and I'm going to use the cursor tool. I'm going to snap the cursor to there. You don't have to worry about the rotation too much, because I've noticed if you add an object, so I'm going to add a mesh, a plane, you'll see that it always adds the plane with relation to the world alignment. You can say 3D cursor, you'll see it'll try and align it to the 3D cursor, and that's why understanding your cursor is quite important. But for now, I'm just going to say world, so I know that the information comes in at the right place. So this is going to be my roof or my ceiling. I'm going to go into tab, edit mode, I'm going to go to vertex mode. So now, very straightforward and easy. I can grab these vertices in move mode. I'm going to move all of this to snap here. Same here, snap to this edge. If you've got a strange shape roof, that's also very easy to do. You just have to move the points individually. You can lock it on the axis, so now it's locked on this axis and you can snap it, very easy. If you need to add complexity, you select these two vertices and you go subdivide, gives you an extra point in which to work. Okay, but if you want to merge these two together again, you just simply move that back there, select there, and it should only be one vertex. Very easy. Okay, so I'm going to move this in that direction, back. Now, select this object. Now, we can start using, so like we did in our previous contextual abstract model that we did, we can simply start using modifiers to generate. So we can solidify these, and we can make them 150, for example. Remember, we can go in the one direction, so we can start using some modifiers to do this for us. So that's very easy as well. So tab. Okay, you can see making my roof was actually very easy, and you see it's actually put it in the right, because we were working in this collection. So I'm going to call this roof or ceiling. I'll call this roof for now, just to help you manage. Now I can simply go Shift D while I'm in the command. You can also go right click and duplicate. Duplicate object, same command, and then go in Z, I can duplicate this down. I can duplicate to the bottom, and I can simply change this to -1. So you can see very quickly I've managed to do my roofs and my floors. You just need to duplicate this object and call this floor. Okay, now what's important is with your floor, I've done this wrong. So that should be my roof. So I might duplicate another object, and that should be my floor. Alright, let's get rid of that. Yeah, delete that one. So that should be roof, floor, double click, and I can get rid of the... Good. Okay, so roof and floor. Now, because these have, and the origins are correct the whole time, so that's important. Because these have modifiers to adopt so there's two ways that you can apply the modifiers. You can go and click apply. You can use the apply function, so that's one way. So if you go to tab mode now and we go to X-ray, you'll see that these objects are on wireframe, so it's done it quite well. Or, oh yeah, another thing is just make sure that you're using even thickness. If you're going to go around corners or the shape gets complex, so just make sure that you enable that as well, just in case. Because so that just means, I'm just going to add some complexity here just to kind of explain it a bit. I'm going to go subdivide a couple times, so maybe twice. It means if we're going to move these up, that it'll maintain, you can see that it'll maintain a thickness, an even thickness. Okay, so that's just important to understand. So make sure that even thickness is enabled as well if you're going to use this workflow. Okay, so the other method we can use is simply convert back to mesh. Convert it back to mesh, and you see it adopts, keeps the name, but it just adopts all the modifiers. Okay, so at this stage now, I'm going to stop this series over here. For my next video, I'm going to start explaining how we model more detailed information and make them collections as part of your model. Okay, but in a nutshell, we should have information that we can control. Okay, so I think the one last step I think we just need to add is something to cut this object with. So I'm going to create a new collection. I'm going to change this collection to cut. This is quite an important workflow to understand. In my cut geometry, I'm going to select my cursor, and I'm going to simply use face tool, and I'm going to just pick the cursor anywhere on this face. So what I would have done, we'll put the cursor on the face, and I'm going to add another mesh, a plane. I'm going to rotate it. This is important as well. I'm going to rotate it in the X direction by 90. So type in 90. So this will be in cut. It'll be in a separate. I'm going to go to my left view and I'm just going to change the size of this object. So while I'm in edit mode, select everything. It doesn't matter in edge or face mode. I'm going to use the scale tool to do this. So scale, I'm going to scale in this direction. I'm going to scale in this direction. I just want to cut this information a bit and I'm going to move it in this direction. I just want to get this in the object somewhat. Now, this object, we can change the way it displays in this view because this is going to become like a section box or it's going to become our cut plane if we need to cut into the preliminary model while we're working. You can see again, this has two directions. So this is where we'll need to use so select the object, so select everything. Oh, I've got that active again. So select everything. Sorry, I must go into edit mode. Edit mode, all mesh, I'm going to use the normals function and flip it. Okay, I'll explain how this works in a second. Now that I've got this cut, I'm going to call it A, section A or A. So while I'm editing this object, I'm going to exit edit mode. Now I'm going to go to object display. So visibility, so in shading, this is important. You need to change the way the shading works. So I don't want this in my shading in visibility. I don't want this to be visible in ray pathing. I'll explain now. Then in the viewport mode, I just want to see this as a wireframe or as an axis. Okay, so switch off wireframe, I'm going to say shadows for now. And here I'm going to switch off wire. So what this does is it changes this object. And you can change, so in visibility, you can also go and affect the size of the axis as well. If you need to, you can go and change the size of the axis. But for now, I'm going to leave everything as is because I want this to give me, one last thing. I'm going to select the object, right click. I'm going to set the origin to the center of the face or volume, surface. Okay, so what this does is it kind of gives me a plane that if I move this plane, Shift W, and I go to move, you can see that these are coincided. Now the reason why the axis is in a different direction is because there's a rotation applied to it at the moment. But that's important. I want to leave it like that. Now it allows me to move this object back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to go back to shell. I'm going to select all of these. So I'm going to say select object, and I'm going to apply a modifier to all of them. By doing so, if I go to modifiers and I hold down Alt while doing this and I go to Boolean, it will apply this modifier to all of these objects selected. Okay, so if I go to modifier, Boolean, so add modifier, sorry, this is a bit tricky, Boolean, okay, and you'll see it's added to all four of them. Now if I go to select collection and I hold down Alt, and I go to cut, you'll see now if I move this face, we need to say difference. Now, I think I've applied this to the wrong one, so we can't apply the modifier there, delete, so undo. So I want to delete the modifier, so in modifiers, delete that. So undo, you're going to have to go to modifiers and remove that. So now you can see by using Alt, I've applied this modifier to all of these objects. So it allows me to use this object to go and cut this up while I'm modeling. So if I'm modeling on this information, I can quickly go and change this information. And very quickly, if I change this to 0, I can cut this in a plane, but I might have changed this to 180. So you can see how I can use this to cut through this information very, very quickly. Okay, the reason why it's not doing this is because the plane must be, okay, so just make sure that this is bigger than the object that it's trying to cut, but you can see very quickly I can change the way this works. In the Z direction I can change. So if it doesn't cut through the whole object, so we've just made a little object, so I can reset that to 0, change that to 90. Okay, if I change this to minus 90, it'll cut in the opposite direction because of that back face object. Okay, so I'm going to stop this here because we've got enough information now to start adding the detail to our model and adding the furniture and extra items that will become components and won't become items that we're going to keep as a separate mesh. We're going to start creating collections and using some plugins. Okay.